female king of Enugu-Ezike. This is a story of a woman, Ahebi Ugbabe, who rose from the status of a local girl and a commercial sex worker to that of a village headman, a warrant chief, and finally a king. Yes, you heard me right. She became the first, and the only female king ever in Igboland. Ahebi was born in the colonial era around the year 1880s in Umuida, Enugu-Ezike, an Igbo community in Enugu, Nigeria. She was born to a man Ugbabe Ahebi, a farmer and palm wine tapper, and her mother, Enugu Ame, also a farmer and a trader. She had two other brothers whose names were not recorded. While Ahebi was growing up in her teenage years, her family suffered series of misfortunes and setbacks. Her father, Ugbabe Ahebi, visited the chief priest of a deity, and he was told that the suffering was a punishment from the gods for his sins, and that the only way to appease the gods was to give his daughter Ahebi as a wife to the deity. Ahebi, being aware of this, had to escape to his maternal village Unadu to avoid being married to a deity. She returned to her village Umuida after a while, but never stayed long before running away to Igala land, as her father insisted she must be given to the deity to save the family from further penury. During her forced exile, Ahebi became a commercial sex worker and used this form of work to her advantage by aligning herself with powerful men such as the ruler of Igala and British colonial officials. With the money she made from sex work, Ahebi ventured into businesses, and this solidified her as a successful foreigner in Igala land. She traded in palm oil and horses, and was one of the most influential horse traders on the Igala-Igbo borders. Along her travels, Ahebi learned to speak numerous languages, such as Igala, Nupe, and Pidgin English. Her sex work and linguistic skills gave her access to the Ata of Igala, and the British divisional officer, who not only facilitated her return to Enugu-Ezike, but supported her to become the headman, later, a warrant chief, and finally, the king of Enugu-Ezike people. Ahebi's reign began few months after she returned to Enugu-Ezike from exile around the year 1918. It was a period of the British incursion into Igboland, and Ahebi used this to her benefit by leading the British forces into Enugu-Ezike, her hometown. Ahebi was the only person in her village who was able to understand and speak with the British people. As a reward for her support, the British invaders removed a former headman, Ugwu Okegwu, who neither understands or could communicate in Pidgin English, and installed Ahebi Ugbabe as the new village headman. And due to her efficiency and continued loyalty, she was elevated to the post of Warrant Chief, a position that is only meant for competent men. The British District Officer W.H. Lloyd mentioned that Ahebi was a lady of influence and power. She was intelligent and of a quiet disposition, and when she does speak, it was usually to the point and sensible. Ahebi Ugbabe became king of Enugu-Ezike, a position that is only meant for men in Igboland, with the aid of the Ata ruler of Igala, whose power spread to northern Igbo territory. She had to travel to Igala for her coronation, as she couldn't hold such in her town, as it was a crime for a woman to be crowned king in Igbo land. She performed female masculinities as ruler, and she surpassed all male political hierarchy and authority. Although Ahebi commanded the respect of her people, she sowed seeds of resentment by conscripting forced labor and imposing a census and a British tax. Well entrenched in her reign, King Ahebi Ugbabe began to hold court cases in her palace while making money from the services. Women who had also been abused by their husbands escaped to Ahebi's palace, who then became their female husband. Ahebi married wives for herself and for her two brothers by paying their bride price. She then looked for men who had intercourse with these wives and claimed the paternity of the children they bore. She assumed the role of a man and named the children after herself. Ahebi also bought slaves and had many female workers who were of great help to the British colonial officers in Enugu-Ezike. King Ahebi also hosted a school in her palace to teach the people after some Roman Catholic missionaries visited Enugu-Ezike in the 1930s, and informed the Warrant Chiefs to establish schools in order to educate the villagers. With time, many of the people became sick and tired of Ahebi's autocratic rule because she refused to consult with the chiefs, received bribes, and took other men's wives by force. Ahebi would easily conquer whatever resistance that rises against her decisions. Because the British gave her backing, Ahebi amassed wealth and power, but ultimately fell from grace when her attitude of challenging and suppressing the men became too much for her community to bear. She attempted to assume full manhood by introducing her own masquerade, a deed performed only by men fully initiated into the masquerade cult, but she met serious resistance from the elders. As expected, the king was not happy with the elders, and she sued them to the British colonial master's court at Onitsha. Unfortunately, it turned out to be a grave mistake. They argued before the resident officer at Onitsha that Ahebi had no right to create a masquerade for herself, as she was a woman. Ahebi Ugbabe had thought she would win the case easily, but after everything she had done for the British, they betrayed her. The colonial masters had no use for her anymore because Enugu-Ezike was now under their control. The resident officer supported the elders' claim that Ahebi Ugbabe had passed her boundaries as a warrant chief, and that she was just an ordinary woman. Well, Ahebi remained the ruler of her people, Enugu-Ezike, until her death. Before she died, she performed her own burial rites. She did not trust that her society would accord her a befitting burial. She intended to perform the rites in such a magnificent manner that her society would never forget that an incredible being such as herself had lived. Her living funeral included gunfire, animal sacrifice, and music of remembrance. Ahebi died in 1948. Although she was a woman, she was buried according to the local customs for burying men. Till date, the story of Ahebi Ugbabe still rings bell in the ears of many. Her kind was rare. What do you know about Ahebi Ugbabe? We will be glad to hear your own side of the story. Thank you for watching.